Okay guys, so today I have a White Forest Azamina deck profile for you. There are 0 Fiendsmith cards in this profile. So recently I've been uploading some Azamina content. By the way, if you haven't seen it, I made an Azamina tips and tricks video that goes over some mechanics, things you should pay attention to. So you can watch that if you want more content like that. But this is my take without any of the Fiendsmith cards. And there is a pretty substantial difference if you're playing without Fiendsmith just because of the existence of Closed Heaven. Normally, when you go for the standard Deception combo, you're going to have the Murcielago on field and you're going to have a Black Witch on field. And this is a very normal situation to get into because you have Deception as a starter, you have Wanted as a starter, and you have Witch as a starter. Those 9 cards, I believe, it's like a 74% chance to see at least one of them if you're going first. Let me double check the math on that real quick. 74% chance if you're going first. Yeah, that's right. And if you're going second, it's an 81% chance. So you are going to have access to these cards. Whether or not it resolves is obviously another issue. But so you need to prepare for what your standard line is going to be. And that's usually that you have Murcielago on field and you have Witch on field. And if you were playing the Fiendsmith stuff, those turn into Closed Heaven. And then you do the Azamina Sylvia line and you make Wave High King or Desiree. So because we're not playing Fiendsmith, this specific scenario needs to have an actually good alternative. And I cannot find anything that is better than Silhouette Rabbit, which is unfortunate because I hate playing cards like Silhouette Trick in the main deck, cards that are not flex on the dice roll. Like if you go second, this is just a brick. You do not want to draw this going second. If you draw it going first, it's not the worst thing in the world because you can still set it and use it. But that's also not good because you would rather have just drawn more gas to play through more stuff and then search this because you can search it anyhow because you can make Rabbit with basically any board that you make. And then you're also disincentivized from making the Rabbit to begin with because you're only maining one target. When I am siding for going first, I don't mind playing both Azuroon and Silhouette Trick. And then even if you do draw one, you can just search the other one. And if you don't draw one, then you search the one that fits that matchup. So you may be thinking that this is kind of like a minor detail to harp on, but one of the things that separates decks like Centurion, which has never been a horrible deck, from decks that are actually good, like Snake Eyes, is the number of bad draws. They don't even have to be like hard bricks. They just have to be suboptimal draws that those types of decks have. So if you're playing Centurion, you have to play cards like Centurion Atri. This card is trash. You have to play cards like Phalanx. This card is trash if you're talking about game 1 on the dice roll. You have to play, well, no, don't play that. You have to play cards like Wake Up Centurion, which is trash. Like super heavy condition for it even being able to activate, and then also not good if you go second. You have to play Gargoyle, which is trash, but your ceiling is so much worse if you don't play those types of cards. So about half the time, even if you play just 4 garbage cards, you're going to be seeing at least one of those cards. You don't want to play a deck like that if you're trying to be competitive. Obviously, if you're going to a locals or maybe like a low-level regional, then you can still do well with these decks. But just the chance of you drawing bricks and having less cards that actually do something in your hand is just not acceptable, especially at longer events. So that's why I don't like having to play cards like this. But as I was saying, I don't think there's a replacement for this card. Just making a Little Knight just doesn't cut it. And also, you can't continue to make link plays because of the arrows, whereas at least with Silhouette Rabbit, if you extend, you can very easily make a Little Knight on top of the Silhouette Rabbit. So yeah, this Rabbit is actually extremely core to the deck gameplay, and that's why I'm talking about it so much. Now, one thing that I am struggling with is I feel like there should be a link package that makes sense because you have more space and you get a bunch of bodies on field that are either like, it's like usually level 7 or level 6. And in many cases, you can turn a dark level 6 like the Murcielago and one of your White Forest monsters into a Chaos Angel. That actually comes up pretty often, especially because during your main phase, you can use the Grave Effect of Debtors to bring back one of those Azamina cards. So I find myself, for example, summoning Saul to send a card, then using it as material for a Light and Dark Chaos Angel. And then I can just, if I need to, I can bring the Saul back for another body or whatever. Oftentimes you also use the Debtors to bring back the Azamina Sylvia the turn after you last used it so that you have the Omni Negate basically at the start of your main phase. But I haven't found a link package that I feel makes sense. So if you have any suggestions or you've tested this yourself, let me know in the comments. Also, shout out to Babrad, okay? Has the highest quality, most consistent comments on my videos. So shout out Babrad if you're watching this video. But yeah, like you can't, it's not reliable to set up a Nightmare Phoenix. If you were on the Fiendsmith stuff and you were going for like Requiem, you could maybe like slightly make your line a little bit more awkward to get the draw of this. But you know, like Phoenix and Unicorn, you often don't have a way to get back that lost card. So it feels a little bit weird sometimes climbing into access code. I do think that Selene is way, way, way better if you were playing a wanted package because you tend to have like on average a couple more spells in your grave. Whereas if you're just playing regular White Forest toy, the Selene is super, super inconsistent. And the people who were playing Selene in the past were usually playing it to make Appaloosa, which is banned, obviously. So realistically, this is an access code climbing package. So, but if you have any other recommendations, yeah, let me know because I'm not really settled on this. I feel like climbing into access code is good, and I feel like I will play the access code regardless. But I don't know about the climbing here. I don't think I have too much else to cover in here. I think that you have no choice but to max out on the wanted engine. You must play all 9, 3 deception, 3 wanted, 3 witch. If you are on a budget and you're looking to build this and you want to cut down on copies of deception, I highly recommend that you get 2 deception because it is very, very easy and it actually helps your combo if you go through 2 in your first turn. You do not need the third one, and the math only drops by about 5% if you go from 9 starters, so 3 witch, 3 wanted, 3 deception, to 8. 3 witch, 3 wanted, 2 deception. So if you're going to cut anywhere, cut 1 deception, but you can play it with 1 deception and the full wanted package, but 2 is really a lot better than 1. Okay, let me go and show you some of the replays now. So let me show you the most trash one first. Oh, loading problem. So this one I draw 3 deception. I draw silhouette trick and an Astellar. So this is a very weak hand because it's very susceptible to interruptions. I don't have a lot of extenders, and I'm just like, okay, let me see if the Astellar resolves, because if I started with a deception, I have to tribute a monster from my hand or field. I can't tribute another spell or trap. So if I were to tribute the Astellar and then this got interrupted, like for example, an ogre or whatever, I basically pass turn setting the silhouette trick. So you basically scoop and just go to the next game. This way, if it gets like impermed or veilered, at least I have another deception where I contribute this to get the Hallowed from deck. So this sequence is just a lot better. But anyhow, they don't have an interruption, which is great because it's not like I was sending a toy card where I don't care if they're interrupting me. Now I actually want it to resolve. And I bring out the Sylvie, which I'm playing out 1. I'm playing 1 Sylvie and 1 Rusia in this build. I actually don't want to be doing that. I would prefer to be playing maybe 2 Sylvie and 2 Rusia. But I don't think it's acceptable to go below the number of hand traps that I currently have, and I'm not playing breakers right now, so I'm on just 1 Sylvie and 1 Rusia, I think. Anyhow, so he mourners me, which is, stops me from getting the trap card, and he's probably recognized that I have a pretty weak hand because this is like a weird sequence to go through, so he does mourner me. And I guess he mourners there because if I were to go into the Arciela, I could dodge it if he tried to mourner this by chaining or whatever, even though that would be inefficient for me. But it doesn't really matter because I'm going to be searching off of the Arciela here. One thing that I forgot is that I should have just activated this so that it was on the field. Remember that the set effect in the end phase only works if this was sent while it was face up in your spell and trap zone. So just in case anything like wonky happens or whatever, you always want your deceptions to be sent face up. So yeah. Anyhow, so here I'm able to trigger the Astellar, and I've searched the LZ off of the Arciela. Here I now make a Diabel, and I add back a Deception. There's no way this guy thinks I have 3, that I drew 3 Deception. So here I activate a Deception, and I send the Deception with the LZ. By the way, the reason that I added this back is because I needed something to send off of this, and I didn't want to lose my silhouette trick, because it's still like an interaction. Even if you don't have the rabbit, It says if this card is special summon, you can target face-up cards your opponent controls up to the number of illusion monsters you control. So this will be an illusion monster, and you negate their effects till the end of the turn. So this is still like an interruption, so I don't want to lose it. And then I search for my one Rusia. I bring out the Rusia, and here I'm like thinking if I want the draw instead of the silhouette trick or not. One thing that is always useful to have is the nib in hand. So I go for the Gallant Granite. Here I activate this card, and because I drew the silhouette trick, I'm not just going to turn the Gallant Granite and the LZ into a rabbit. Otherwise, I probably would have done that and then searched the silhouette trick because it would have been a +1 and this would have been something else in my hand. But I didn't feel like just making the SP right there was worth it. So instead, I opt to bring out the Hallowed, and I bring out the Murcielago. I search for a Wanted. I wanted for a Witch. And now I don't want to give up the nib that I searched, and I don't want to give up the silhouette trick, which is currently unknown. So I decide to go for the wanted draw so that I have something to send off of the Witch. But then I draw into Box, which is crazy because Box and Witch, just like Box and the White Forest cards, is like insane advantage. So I activate the Box, and then he scoops. So this is why I said this was the most boring game. But I just was walking you through the thought process there. Okay, so that was the first one. Then I will show you another wacky one. So here I draw Box, and then I draw doubles, which is, what can you do? And I draw one hand trap. With the ratios I'm playing right now, the typical hand is 2 hand traps, and then the rest engine. But still, this is not like that atypical. If I drawn 0 hand traps, it would have been a little bit weird. So he activates Butler, and he sets Domain, which he can use. So, pretty cringe. Bringing out the Dinomorphia card. And this card, if I remember correctly, it copies the effect from the Trap in the Grave, right? But I think that to bring out the Rexterm, the broken one, you have to have used one of the extra deck monsters. And since he's copying this effect, this one uses materials from your hand, deck, or field, but not from your grave. So I'm like, okay, I'll just ogre that, and you're just going to have to make something that's not Rexterm. So he just makes another one, but it's once per turn. And then he brings out the Theresia with the grave effect, and that gets a search for the Frenzy, which he cannot activate right now. So anyhow, I box. There's no ogre on the box, which is great, because that means that, my LZ is live or whatever. So then I witch. Now, I don't actually know why I sent the LZ, because I could have just immediately sent a soldier, and this would have gotten me into the White Forest engine anyhow. You never want to reveal the stuff in your hand for no reason. So I feel like I should have witched, sending the soldier that was known, and then the soldier could have searched the Sylvie, and if I get interrupted along the way, then I still have the LZ in hand. So I feel like I shouldn't just reveal, send that from hand. I feel like I should have sent the soldier. Anyhow, so I bring out the Deception, and now I realize, oh wait, I sequenced this poorly, and I don't want to get rid of my last LZ. So now I use the LZ sending the soldier, and I search in a Stellar because I haven't normaled, and then this can search me another box. I didn't want to search the Sylvie or the Rusia, because at this point I now know that he doesn't have more interruptions, or at least there's no way that you don't Ash the LZ, for example, at this point. So now I summon the Esteller, and I send the tank. This is a super strange sequence, and I think it's mostly because I didn't use the Diabellster sending the card that I wanted to send. So here I search the Woes. I make the Arciela sending the Woes. The Esteller comes back out. Here I can make Diabell, and I add back the Wanted, which is fine because I just want something to get a draw off of. So I send back the used Wanted, and I draw into a Veiler. And then I make Chaos Angel because I'm like, okay, well, I don't want it to pass turn and he gets to make a Rexterm because it's my first turn, so I can't kill him. He's just done this. He's done this on his turn 0. So I banish that card with the Chaos Angel. Now I make the Nightmare Phoenix. This is actually, this card comes up all the time. So even though I was complaining about the Link package and not really knowing what the best stuff was to climb, and even though there's no consistent way that I found to get the draw back off of this because of the arrows, this card comes up all the time still. So anyhow, I pop that card. Now I finally tribute the Witch off of Deception, and I get the Hallowed, and the Hallowed brings out the Sol. And so here I'm just thinking I could make the Azamina Sylvia, but I'm just going to clear his field, and I'm going to play a resource game, because remember, this card says in the standby phase, not yours, any standby phase, you can target an Azamina or a Sinful Spoils card in your grave, add it to your hand. And he's on 2 cards. He'll draw a 3rd card. So I'm just thinking, there's no way this guy beats me if I'm just playing the resource game at this point, right? And then I make the rabbit, because the Phoenix will do nothing else for me, and I could bring out the Rusia for free. And so I get access to the Silhouette trick. And then I want to draw here, and I draw into another deception. So yeah, and because I drew into another deception, I'm like, oh wait, I can just howl it again. And even though like it's not super efficient that I put back the Sol that was on the field, I was like, well, I guess I don't really need the add back in the standby. I'll just get an Omni Negate instead. And so now I bring out the Azamina Sylvia, and then I reset the deception in the end phase. So I'm pretty well set up in terms of my grave. I have the Woes live with a target to put back for my level 4s. I'm going to be able to get back an LZ on his turn, and I have Silhouette Trick here. So I'm looking very good. I'm like, you know, unless he has like a sphere mode, there's no way that he's going to beat me. So he normal summons this card, and I'm thinking he's going first. He was playing janky cards like this. He's probably not unevenly matched, was what I was thinking. And so I just negated that card, and then he sets a card, and then I use the rabbit to pop whatever card he set last, just in case, you know, maybe he was trying to bait me by doing this in a different phase, and this was the worst card. So yeah, now he activates this. Bro, honestly, I don't actually know what this did. I didn't understand this interaction. So pay half your life points, special summon a Zark from your extra deck, ignoring its summoning conditions, but negate its effects. So I read this and I was like, okay, negate its effects. I don't care. It's returned to the extra deck during the end phase of the next turn. When your opponent activates a spell card or effect, you can banish this from your grave. And one Supreme King Zark, special summon. Okay, so I'm like, okay, I don't know what this does. I'm just going to bring out Sylvie and book the field because I'm confused. So here is where I'm trying to go into the Sylvie. I'll bring out the Sylvie. And one thing that is like useful to keep in mind is if it's your opponent's turn, remember that triggers, they have to choose their triggers first. So like that can impact like chain blocking and stuff like that. Now, if this card comes out and it says here, must be fusion summoned. If this card is special summoned, destroy all cards your opponent controls. Cannot be destroyed by opponent's card effects. Your opponent cannot target this card, win this card, blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, didn't this say that it was negated? Anyhow, it does activate, and it does send everything besides what the Chaos Angel was protecting. So, yeah. Anyhow, because this has 0 defense, I knew that I was just going to run into that, and it didn't really matter what was on the rest of his field. So, yeah. Okay, now let's do the, this was against tearlaments. So here I draw, I would say this is kind of like a typical-ish hand. We have one hand trap, and then we basically have engine. So here, oh, by the way, I should also say that I have not run into Droll in a very long time on Omega, so I'm not playing around Droll. So we Sylvie, he activates the Havness. That's crazy. He mills the Rhino and the King of the Swamp. So I'm actually a little bit concerned at this point. And I'm thinking that maybe he wants to make like a Kaleido, or I don't know if he's playing the Grapha. I don't know how popular Grapha is right now, but he does have King of the Swamp in the grave. Or because he has King of the Swamp, he could make Rule Kalos. So he dumps the Shaylin, and he does make the Rukalos. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going to do anything that will trigger this effect. Especially if he can get another fusion summon, because I don't know what's in his hand. Maybe he'll like send the Havness and be able to bring out a Kaleido or something. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to book your field so you can't do anything, and now I'm going to continue playing. Okay, so now we Tails, we Rusia here, we send the Woes, we bring back the Woes, we drew into a Nib, and I'm like, this is probably not going to be that good against Tear, and I probably don't need it. I make the Rabbit, I bring out the Silhouette Trick, I tribute the Nib because I feel like it's the least important one. Now I bring out the Murcielago. So at this point, like now I'm like, okay, he has no interruptions left. So I'm not just going to go immediately for the Azamina Sylvia for the Omni Negate. I'm thinking that I can do the more efficient resource loop, despite delaying the Omni Negate timing. So here I get out another Deception. This is why I say that you should really get 2 Deception. Like the lines I feel like are a lot cleaner if you have access to 2 Deceptions. So now I go into a Little Knight. Remember, this is his turn 0, so I can't actually attack. And I do want to clear this. I don't want this to be floating. So I Little Knight and I banish that card. I add back the Hallowed. And now I have access to the wanted draw. So I get 2 imperms. Here I hallowed again. I bring out the Sol. And because he already used the Rhino Heart, I don't care about sending it to the graveyard. So I just Sol to do that. And in the end phase, I set the this card. And now I misclicked because I'm used to just like, okay, yeah, get past the standby phase or start playing. But if you're playing on an automated sim, do not just skip through everything, because otherwise you won't in the standby phase be able to add back, you know, like the hallowed Azamina or whatever. Not that it matters a huge amount, because I have Deception here, which is not currently live out of turn because I don't have Debtors, but I do have it for the follow-up. I do have Silhouette Trick. I have double Imperm, and then I have access to like Sylvie or Ciela or whatever. Okay, so now he activates Tract, and I actually haven't played against this since the Fiendsmith stuff comes out, but this is pretty cool that you get to Rhino off of that. And now, because I know that his trigger will go first, I decide to Hat Trick so that he can go chain like 1 Rhino, and I will go chain like 2 Silhouette Trick and negate the Rhino Heart. So that's what I do, because like, you know, there's no reason to reveal the imperms. You know, he doesn't know what the imperms are, but he does know that I searched this. So I'm obviously going to use the known knowledge instead of anything else. And then at this point, I'm thinking I actually don't really know what he has besides the Redoer to make with these 2 level 4s. So I'm just like allowing him to play. I don't want to woes, because, you know, if he has like you know, we knew that he was playing King of the Swamp. He could have like a Poly, for example, and then he's just going to Poly with his face down monsters. So, and then I just chained the Little Knight because, you know, there's no reason to use a card that I don't need to use. Okay, so now going on to the last game. This is against the the Millennium Exodd deck, which is actually kind of interesting. I feel like it's not trash. I don't think I've lost to it yet, but I've only played it a few times, and I feel like it does have to play like this card, for example, and these cards are trash, I think, or at least in like the best cards are like this card and the Golem and stuff. So I don't know. The Exodd stuff is cool though. Those seem to have actually good effects. So he searches for the Ankh. I don't have anything to interact with, so I'm just waiting for him to finish his turn. And so this card. This one can't be destroyed by card effects. This is the boss monster. And then during damage calculation, so I did not read this and I lost this before. During damage calculation, you can make this card gain attack equal to your life points. So this guy attacked me while he had 8,000 life points, and he just killed me in 1 hit because I wasn't paying attention. Yeah, then this is also a spell or trap negate once per turn. And then in the end phase, you can set an Exodd or obliterate spell or trap from your deck. Turns out those cards are actually good. So Exodd Fires of Rage. So if you control a level 10 or higher Exodia monster, so the monster that just set this card, you can destroy all cards your opponent controls. Like, that's pretty insane. And then if this is in the grave, you can, I don't know, I don't think this stuff is relevant because it didn't matter in this game, but so I'm like, okay, that's a pretty strong card effect. And then this other one targets a monster on the field and returns it to the hand. And this one, you don't have to have the boss monster on the field to use it. So yeah, I'm just trying to think, like, how do I turn this off or force the, what was that other card called? Doesn't matter, it's not showing up here. Or force the other card as soon as possible. So I activate the box. Bro, I don't know why these players are all on Ghost Sister Spooky Dogwood. It seems like all these Millennium Exodd players are playing this card, and it's very annoying. I don't know if it's actually good or not. I know they have to pay a bunch of life points, and they probably don't want to just get OTK'd. And it does actually save them a turn or so. But anyhow, so I activate the box. And I think that I might have just skipped past this, but I think that he negated it with the Exodia Incarnate. So I'm like, okay, he doesn't have a way to stop my next spell and trap. I'm going to Wanted and use that as the material for the Debtors. So I bring out the Sol because I'm just trying to clear this this card immediately. That's all I want so that I can do my plays. So I Sol and I'm like, okay, force him to use it. So he sends it to the graveyard. And now I can activate my Black Witch to make my Tails live, I think is what I was thinking. So I Witch, and then I'm like, let me not waste any more time in case he spot removals me. I'm just going to immediately Tails. So I Tails for the LZ. I activate my Deception. I LZ send the Silhouette Trick because I'm thinking I'm not playing for the follow-up right now. I have not actually cleared his board, so I just need as much like gas as possible right now. So I normal summon the Sylvie. I search for the Woes. And here I think I'm just trying to get more bodies, which is why I was trying to search the Rusia and go through the combo to get the Hallowed Azamina. So here I hallowed for the Murcielago, and I get another Deception. And now I Little Knight with an extra deck monster so that I can banish the Unstoppable. And then this is where I realized that he can actually target his own cards. I don't really know if it mattered what he targeted at this point, but either way, I just like removed something else because I was thinking maybe I can just clear the rest right now. But I can't attack directly anyhow, and you can see his life points are going really high. So okay, now I bring out the Azamina Sylvia because I've gone through the Sol and I've gone through the Murcielago already. And in my end phase, I reset the Deception. I don't have access to Debtors. I used that already. And you can't use both Debtors effects in the same turn. And also the second effect is only in your main phase. So I'm actually not going to get really any value off of that. But I do have access to a Woes. So we're on a single Omni Negate and a Woes. And then my Little Knight is used basically immediately. So now I think he's just trying to bait me. Because I'm like, he's banishing this to shuffle back some stuff. I'm like, okay, whatever. It doesn't seem like it's affecting me. But this card, I don't really know what the play is here, but this seems to be the card that everything mentions in their text. So I'm like, okay, that seems good. I'm not going to negate that. And then he talents to draw 2. And I'm still sitting on just the Woes, basically. So now he gets the Heart of the Blue Eyes, or whatever that card is called, Heart Eyes of Blue. And so now he activates the Millennium Exodd, and I know that he's going to bring out the Unstoppable Exodia. And that card is a spell or trap negate, so I have no choice but to activate Woes now, so that I can book his monster after it's summoned. And also, like, I don't know if he has a way of negating this, but I chain block it just in case, so that LZ is chain link 2 and this is chain link 1. And I also know that this card has 0 defense, so if this stays on field, I can do like piercing for a little bit more damage. So my Little Knight comes back, and now I have Box. I activate Deception. I can get back my Azamina Debtors, and I bring back the Azamina Sylvia. So I mentioned this in my tips and tricks. This card is the only one that does not have to be fusion summoned to use its effect. So even though I have not fusion summoned this, I've just special summoned it after it was correctly fusion summoned from the graveyard. This is still live as an Omni Negate. So this is another reason that I like the Debtors. Just like you could just immediately have an Omni Negate on your field. So now I get the draw off of Wanted. I add back the Hallowed. I bring out the Sol because now I'm trying to like clear stuff on the board. I send this card because the attack is like kind of high for right now, and I don't want to have to run over it with like what's that card called? A Chaos Knight. Okay, so we box here, and I go into the Chaos Angel, and I banish whatever. He tries to use this card. If my opponent normal or summons normal or specials a monster that's level 8 or higher, or 3k or more attack, blah blah blah. But the Chaos Angel is resistant because it was made with a light. So anyhow, now I Phoenix to try to force the Obliterate, and that's like the only thing that I've seen right now that can clear the Chaos Angel, because I'm assuming he's not playing more of that other trap. And so I'm like, okay, I'll just negate that and keep the Chaos Angel on field. And now that I've cleared a bunch of bodies, forced out a bunch of stuff, I feel like I can start going through the box engine. Get another box here. Now I make Selene, and so I do value the Selene because of stuff like this. Like, I feel like you often are in scenarios where most of your engine isn't actually removing stuff, it's just like booking stuff or whatever, and you only have like individual spot removal with the Sol, so I feel like the access code is actually pretty useful here. And you naturally do go through like a bunch of different attributes. If you're playing like the Phoenix is fire, the Selene is light, and oftentimes my SP will already have been used by time I get to access code, because the SP is more of like an early game monster, so I often have like 3 pops with the access code, and then he surrenders. So my thoughts on this deck right now are I have 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 hand traps. I think that it should be 15. I may go to 42 just to put in a third Ogre. The math doesn't really change much between 40 and 42. Once you start going like 43, 44, 45 and above, the math does actually change. And when you're on a multi-card combo deck, it's a much bigger deal than if you're just looking for like a single starter. And in this deck, we're not just looking for Deception, Wanted, or Witch. We're looking for combinations of stuff like Box and LZ and so on. So you definitely don't go above 42 in this type of deck. 41 can be acceptable. 42 I feel like is the absolute upper limit that's really pushing it. You could, I feel like maybe you could cut the deaders and try to stick to a cleaner 40. You maybe could cut the tails. I feel like it's hard to cut tails when almost every single hand gives you access to Witch, so tails can never be a dead draw. Whereas in a lot of other versions of the deck, it's just like, you need something else for it to be live, so it's almost like a win more card. But it doesn't feel win more in this version because there's almost no scenario where it's not live. Yeah. So I think that's basically everything I wanted to cover for now. If you have any suggestions, let me know. If you want to join the Discord and get feedback on your decks and stuff like that, you can click the link in the description below. Thanks for watching.